Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Miss Christine Hall to Poets of the East. Christine, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you, Richard. I really appreciate the invite.
Well, it's my pleasure, and soon it'll be our pleasure. So let me ask you the first question I'd love to ask my fellow poets. When did you realize you were a poet?
Oh, goodness gracious. Somewhere between Bible study and English class.
Okay,
Yeah,
good answer, good answer.
yeah, I was always captivated by verse. I mean, even something like a Dr. Seuss book, I thought in rhyme much of my early years. It was something I fought against for a while, but when it comes up, it comes up. If the right word rhymes, it does, but don't reach
That's
for it, certainly.
that's an important point. I know that it is not popular. It's not deemed sophisticated to rhyme. And when I first started reading my work publicly, there was a spate of poetry slams and that sort of thing. And while I graded against the idea of competitions and contests, it was at least a chance to read. So I liked it for that reason. And I had a couple of friends pull me aside and said, Rick, hey, you rhyme, and that's just, I mean, it's just not done. I said, you know what? Let me tell you something. When my muse gives me a line, when I get a metaphor, I don't argue. I just say, hey, you know what? I like that. That's cool. So I've left that battle far behind, and those who will sneer, God bless them.
Yep, exactly, right? If you want to find something to be a bummer about, you will certainly find it, whichever context you're looking in, it's going to present if whatever you're looking for pops out, certainly.
So one of the other questions I love to ask my poet friends, so many of us use more than one creative medium. In other words, we're not just struggling with the right verb or noun. Sometimes we're slapping some paint down. Sometimes we're carving something out of X, and sometimes we're doing something entirely different. So do you work in other mediums? If so, what are they?
Yes, thank you for this question. I love the interplay between different media. It's one of the most exciting things to me. Yes, mixed media, in fact, in itself is something I enjoy. I love making trash sculptures, for instance. I paint, I experiment with anything that comes across, anything I get my hands on, anything I see somebody else doing that sparks my interest. I love to interact. I learn by working with something, by practicing. And even if it's not something I'm going to pick up for any period of time, just having that experience, getting that perspective of being present with the material. I feel like I can relate to other artists, but I also feel like I'm putting just another novel piece into my bag, that, a mixed bag of tricks that we're all working with. We pick up elements from everyone we encounter, everything, yeah.
Another one of the things that struck me when I was quite young, I had read widely enough to know how challenging the artist's life could be. And I was somewhat resigned to living in some warehouse or some garret or something like that. And I really, the economic struggle, the rat race, had absolutely no interest for me. But I met this lovely young lady in 10th grade, and I've been making a living ever since. So that being said, I was troubled by the fact that, okay, if you're one kind of artist, that's difficult. If you're two or three or four or five or more, it goes beyond absurd. How did you find a way to hold to your art and yet somehow still live in the world?
Yes. Oh, goodness.
I saved the hard question. I mean,
no, I leave.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It's exciting. This is exactly, yes, perfectly tailored questions for an artist, for a poet, for someone who, draws from all these elements and yet wants to cobble together, fashion a life that is livable. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's sustainable. We keep expressing, right? So we don't get burnt out right. So I was on the street when I was a teenager in San Francisco. Wow. I then my closest friend passed and left me 20 grand, which I used as a down payment on the home that I am sitting in right now.
How
So
wonderful.
I
How
am
wonderful.
internally filled with gratitude for that. That gave me a foundation on which to build. And I love being able to work with these platforms where I can invite others in. I have been freelance since the birth of my second child. Before that, I did do writing in the realm of PR for the music industry, which I found soul sucking. It did educate me on a variety of matters that are pertinent, and I drew material from them. During that time, I tried to open a community arts center. It only lasted 8 months. It was a magical experience, but absolutely scooped me out. So regenerating from that, doing freelance work. Sometimes I work with my body doing landscaping. I have a permaculture design certificate. Sometimes I'll work in the art department on a film or a commercial or music video, with varying degrees of enjoyment of that. Always, though, soaking in the information, learning. I like experimenting with short poem videos or art videos, and being able to have those references. That's quite valuable for me as well. So
I think quite fondly, there's an exchange in the film Amadeus between a young Wolfgang and his father. And his father says, well, what about pupils? And he said, oh, I don't want pupils. I want to compose. And he goes, yeah, but pupils pay the bills. I know that battle so well. And I want to ask you, your work, I know you try to bring as much of your art into it as you can within the constraints of the commercial universe. Right now, you're involved in more than just your own work. You work bringing other poets together. Talk a little bit about the art of bringing poets and bringing artists together.
Yes. So back from the community arts center, even reaching before that, because my mother had lived on a commune, or a kibbutz as they call it, in Israel. I had a community-minded consciousness, right? And was keenly aware of the disparity of wealth in our universe. I was raised in poverty, but also observing it around me and all the other inequities, and being outraged at this and feeling somewhat helpless, wanting to do something right. And so getting involved in little projects like zines. I had a very close friend who put together zines with different works of art and poems and writings from all over that were specifically by Jehovah's Witnesses. That was the cult in which we were raised. And so it was an outlet for us. But then also, it was an outlet out of that cult, because we got that window onto the world and tapped into what was termed worldly for us, and it became attractive. And it already was from the very beginning, and there was something of that forbidden nature, right? So drawing from being rejected to being accepted, and being able to relate to both sides of that. Every community venture I do, inclusivity is key to me. So then to the community arts center, and then going out to open mics and observing these being organized, becoming a regular, being invited to organize poetry in the Brew a few years into its run, which, it's been going 10 years now, and I've been with it 7 years. Yeah, it's amazing seeing the way that the community grows, the way that artists support one another in this context, are able to play off one another's work, elevate their own form, experience perspectives that they wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. It's so energizing and invigorating. And
you mentioned something that I find very intriguing, because religion and the search for that connection between the universe and the artist is something that was very important to me. I was raised Catholic, asked too many questions, and ultimately found myself part of a ritual that I had not been prepared for. I had been thrown out of class for asking rude questions, so I didn't hear some of the nuance of training. And one of the things that I had missed was, at the conclusion of this confirmation, what you might call a bat mitzvah in Jewish faith, I was supposed to kiss the bishop's ring. And I see, I'm an S, so I'm at the end of this long line of children, and I'm watching them at the conclusion of their little blessing perform that ritual. And I tell you, as clear as day, I could see Tom Jefferson and Tom Paine hovering there in the middle distance, and they're going, wait a minute, we don't do that anymore. We're into human liberty. We don't have to kiss the ring of a bishop or a king or a prince. That stuff's old news. And I also reflected on the fact that, the Jesus that I knew, the Jesus that I had read, at least fourth hand, as it were, this was not him. This had nothing to do with him. So I thought to myself, okay, look, how could I possibly explain that? There's no way that me, a 12-year-old kid, is going to say, okay, listen, by the way, this ritual is so bullshit and it's so bad and so anti-Christian, it's just crazy. But I thought, oh, look, wait a minute, wait. You're not stupid. Don't even, just go through it. Just do it. Don't question it. Just look, it's going to take about a minute and a half. Don't worry about it. But when push came to shove and I was there and the hand was put in my face, I shook his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Which was not quite in keeping with what they had in mind. So he puts it in my face again. And even if I'd been inclined when he ordered me to kiss it, no, I'm sorry, that was beyond the pale. So when I shook it again, I was ordered out of the building in front of the entire, basically all the relatives, all the Catholics I knew, which was my entire universe. And so I took a vow to read every religious book I could. I took a vow I would read the Quran, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, Book of Solomon. Just if I could find it, I could read it and try beyond reading just to grasp it. So I really like the fact that part of your exploration of the arts and your connection to it, the universe, was what this religion's element was part of it. And you see it as bringing you to a place where you had to work with the community. You saw that as part of your work and part of your being. I think that's so laudable.
Oh, thank you. We were taught to be separate from the world, to give up this life for some promise of the next. And yet here it is, rich with meaning. Here we are, to connect with another, right? Especially through the arts, where we're communing over these deep questions, the meaning that we seek, that we look to generate, however we do it, however we find it. Just being willing to put that out there and see one another human to human. What a precious gift this life is. I mean, the magic of it, the mysticism, the wonder, so much of that is available in the mundane. If you are present and at any moment can be golden, can generate a poem.
Okay, let me ask you another easy question. To me, when I look at the arc of poetry, the arc of literature across time, the oldest stories we know are the stories of the poets. Today, we poets, I think, have a responsibility. What do you see that responsibility today as?
Yes. Yes. All right. The sacred gift of telling the truth, right? About our personal experience. To me, these stories that have been handed down, so many of them, yes, there are poems that read as prophecies, and we can feel the touchstone in them even now. When an artist has related an experience truly, down to the specificity, down to the detail, we're transported into their viewpoint. So yes, we learn and we grow and we experience things beyond what we would have, think of things in ways we wouldn't have. And in this way, we evolve, right? We carry the torch, we pass it on from generation to generation. We look to heal and improve. We carry forth new ideas that others can build on. Everything started as a thought. Everything started in imagination. Everything we see built in this entire world. And we are part of that. And it's up to us whether we participate.
My dear, you are a very eloquent poet.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's such a joy and privilege to speak with you. Thank you, Rick.
you know, and I know that there are poets and poets and poets. And some poets treat on, let's say, a very picturesque level. Other poets speak to deeper truths. And from your eloquence, I know that you are a poet who deals with some of the deepest parts of humanity. And I believe it's such an honor to speak to you. I want to thank you.
Thank you. Mutual honor. It is beautiful to connect, and certainly we aren't that far from one another in
Space-time, yes.
So yes, I see that as happening also.
Let me ask you this. It seems to me likely that we're about to face another COVID isolation. Can poets offer something of solace, something of vitality to a broader community from the work that we do?
Oh, I certainly think that this connection, this communing is essential. And so if poetry is something that anyone shares an interest in, that's something they can share. I really feel that the spirit and soul bloom with the sort of practice. If we take the time, right, to speak our mind, if we put that out there, if we take the time to listen, these are, I mean, it's what gives my life meaning. I have witnessed it give meaning to so many others and be a lifeline throughout the pandemic in its many iterations that we've experienced so far, in so many other aspects of life. I mean, it is cathartic, but it is also opening doors to new ways of being, which is what we need right now. So yeah, I do feel that it's a multi-purpose solution that anyone who has the slightest inkling should avail themselves of.
You know, one of the things that I've always found amusing about poetry, we know, those of us who've grown up in Western culture, know that poetry is often in the common mind thought of as a frivolity, as a complete auxiliary to real life. Even many in the world of literature feel that poetry is quaint or interesting in a very pejorative vein. But you know, it seems to me, when you reflect on it, when those standard issue Americans, whatever that might be, when they go to their football games, you know what? They chant poetry.
Oh, yeah.
When they listen to their popular music, they're listening to poetry. When they want to generate enthusiasm for war or whatever craziness that drives them, they turn to poetry. When they want to sell a product, they turn to poetry. So we're kind of this hidden magical place that we know is, that they use, but they prefer not to, you know, because poets have a better agenda than that, than selling products.
Yes. Oh, truly. Yeah, I mean, poetry is a way to compose one's thoughts, to truly know oneself, and then in practice, in effect, to be oneself. We say it, we do it, you know, we speak it, we be it. It is calling into being. It is a powerful thing. Everyone is experiencing it in their daily life, whether they acknowledge this or not, that to interact with your thoughts in a way to actually have the output that communicates the intention, right? The intention matched with the effect, or in fact, to just pour yourself out and let go of it and let it take on a life of its own and let other people take of it what they will. I think this is a sacred duty. And, you know, anyone who feels the calling knows. And I think a lot of other people are feeling the calling and, you know, may not be admitting it yet.
Well, I take such joy that while on the one hand, we are held apart from each other, and yet we have made these new communities of poets. We have made connections, global, international, trans-language connections, which I just find so thrilling and so life affirming.
All right, we are all artists. We all start that way, right? We all have a song inside us. It is to sing. We all have poetry, right? It is to express. These are the languages of human being. And if we're not indulging and engaging with the healthy stuff, with the good stuff, right? We're stuck with all this crap that is mounding up. We've got to make something with it.
You know, one of the things you'd said early really caught my attention because I felt so burdened by it myself. You mentioned that, you know, a lot of us, especially those of us who've done commercial wordsmithery, in our early years, I know for me, I had to, when I was asked to write propaganda, commercial propaganda, selling some nonsense, I had to write the absolutely cynical version first to get it out of my head. Then I could write the baloney that I had to write to sell whatever crap I was selling. But it was like I had to get out of it, you know, get it out, so I'm not sniping at my writing while I'm writing it. And it reminded me of what you said that.
The snark comes through, doesn't it? Oh, I love that you would get that out there. That's wonderful. I was only so bold in my school essays, you know, to, for instance, write an essay about why essays suck in green pen.
Excellent. Excellent. So before we get to the wonderful world of Christine Hall's poetry, I want to ask you, what plans do you have in the near term? What are some of the plans that you have in the offing?
Oh, okay. Well, very soon we'll have another celebration. Now that the contributors for Sinew, their books are arriving in hand, we're planning to have another online reading with the contributors to Sinew, but also a campfire here. We're in the Nashville area, so we're going to gather in a park and have a fire and take turns reading each other's poems.
Nice.
Right now for Poetry in the Brew, we're meeting in person with vaccinations or negative COVID tests and masks. We're doing that second Saturday of every month, and online fourth Saturday of every month. So keeping that up with Poetry in the Brew. Personally, I mean, you know, I'm a writer. I've got a book we're working on. I love doing artistic collaborations. I've got a few other regular shows. Yeah.
Where can they find your writing? Where can they buy your books?
Thank you. Okay, so I maintain an Instagram. It's at Exine Raquel, XINERAQU.
You're gonna have to write that one out for me, okay?
I will. It's Christine Raquel, but Christine is spelled with an X, and I've been doing that since I was a teenager.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. And then for Poetry in the Brew, we've got a blog, poetryinthebrew.wordpress.com. There's a shop there with a link to where you can pick up the book Sinew,
Okay, good.
10 Years of Poetry in the Brew. Yep, and Poetry in the Brew is on all the socials at Poetry in the Brew.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So how about a poem or two?
Okay, that sounds lovely. Thank you. I have a feature tonight in Murfreesboro, and I have everything shuffled in a weird order right now. I'm feeling a mood. Let me see. I like this one. It's irreverent. Okay.
Good, good.
All right. Ballad of the Sexes. If you told me nature punched you in the gut till you bled out your dick for a week every month, you'd at least get a hug out of it. This is not another nature poem. This is not another love poem. Every flower, down to its last petal, tells me not. We can try new sex positions. The golden monkey fist, dog with halitosis. The buck-toothed alligator weds itself in mixed race, hermaphroditic bliss. We can be thankful my ass still fits between the two bird shits. Unshaven legs and a pussy-eating passport stamp do not constitute a feminist. The breeze rustles the hair on my knuckles. The helicopter overhead buzzes in my clit. Overgrown grass out front is the resistance. Gender neutral, it persists, hiding its sex. Then mature, it comes bearing flowers. You say no and cut them. This is not another war poem.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Very nice. And so beautifully stated. And I love the humor in it. And there is such a good, strong truth in that humor. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, loosen up with humor and then sneak in with the little punch.
I do it every day. Do
Yeah.
it every day.
Mixing up the insides, seeing what shakes loose, rearrange.
Yeah, yeah. Please, another.
Another? Okay, we will do another. Let us.
And I will respond in my own kind.
Okay, thank you. All right, I opened to this one. 4 women. Standing on my porch, watching 2 full women and a little girl, umbrellas, single file, bewitching style, bright pink and white stripes, this year's Pantone emerald, classic black and white polka dots, galashing down the sidewalk on the opposite side of the street. 40 paces behind them, a plain and pretty teenager in Vanderbilt sweatshirt and ponytail presses a cloth to her forehead. Pink stripes of rain-rinsed blood on gauzy white soaked translucent, mouthing words in profusion. I want to call out to offer help, or our one umbrella, impractical in scale with Spider-Man's head as a handle. When she turns and looks at me, she keeps mouthing, her words washed out. I keep not interrupting. I'd need to shout over the downpour. This could be something she won't repeat. I lift my hands, palm upward, dramatize the question. She turns and keeps walking, mouthing incantations or curses, play by play, or whatever it is she needs to say.
Very nice. Very nice. A very strong picture. And I think a lovely juxtaposition of this parade, if you will, of the 3 women, or 2 women and the girl, and then this troubled soul behind. Very nice.
A journey through the generations. Thank you.
Let me offer you one of my COVID poems, if I may.
Oh, please, yes.
And like you have done, I include a little humor in there to kind of lighten it up a little bit. This is called Down from the Trees. Honey, baby, tell me, please, since we're not so long down from the trees, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, up in the branches or down on deeply polished floors. We like reciprocal, you and me, ever since we balanced on the limbs of trees, whether out in the car or up in the tree. I'll groom you, you groom me. But one thing now that's left for us as the virus sets a fence between what we really feel and what we really mean, with you so far away on the other side of the glowing screen another day, we wave weakly. How I miss your sweet perfume and the many ways, darling, you decorate a room. The distance mars, our love sealed up behind the screen's glass walls untouched. Oh, honey, baby, tell me, please, since we're really not that long down from the trees, I wish you were here to find and pluck off all my fleas. We're isolated, out of touch, and miles away my fingers clutch in disarray, my clothes askew. What I wouldn't give for you to have your seat beside me here, with your fingers scratching my matted hair. Even to have you look with scorn at the clothes piled across the room I've worn. I'd even eat the toast you'd burn if I could beside you touch you and warmly turn.
Ooh, oh, what a viewpoint. I love that bridge. Yes, we are rather fresh down from the trees, and I love how you related that. Thank you. Reciprocity, indeed, that seeking human connection. We are such simple creatures, aren't we?
Indeed. Do you want to leave us with one more poem?
I shall. Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think I know the one I want.
Well, I am so much looking forward to talking to you and touching your lovely hand.
I really look forward to sharing poetic space face to face in actual person form. Yes, let's do that as quick as pandemic and other circumstances allow it. This is a wonderful way to convene with you. I so appreciate this. Thank you.
The honor is mine.
Mm. Okay, I'm going to do it. It's another one from the neighborhood. This one's called Black Ice. My neighbor is mechanic to the gangsters and their babies, dolls, malls, and me. He does his work on the block that runs between our houses. I dreamed he had the river of life in his backyard, running between fruit trees, and his home a black lacquer bachelor pad. He doesn't have power or water, and I fill his glass with ice in the summertime. He took me to his mother's on a test drive. He's been staying there since she died. There were ducks on wood paneling he installed himself in a pattern part freeform, part parquet, and lamps in every room. He wore his headlamp and turned each light on and off as we went. The lamps had blue glass orb bases and beige Dupioni silk or brass trumpet shades. They were the kind of lamps my boyfriend would kill to have on the set of one of his movies, a period piece, a hero lamp lighting the scene as a gangster's doll waits for her man, or he waits for her to see about where she's been. My mechanic leaves a black ice air freshener on my rear view mirror and gives me an ice cream sandwich. I wonder if he's hinting.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. My dear, you build a powerful metaphor. Very colorful indeed. Well, thank you so much for taking some time. A great honor to have you with us. And
an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Christine Hall of Poetry in the Brew and so many other wonderful projects. Thanks so much. When can they give me those dates again? It's the first and the last.
It's the second Saturday in person at Portland Brew East, the fourth Saturday online. You can find us poetryinthebrew.wordpress.com.
Okay. And we will find you. Thank you so much.
Oh, so enjoyed spending time with you, Rick. Thank you.
Okay,
A beautiful
bye-bye.
afternoon.
You too.